Hi everyone, and welcome to the third session of linguistic appropriateness and how to maintain this suitability of the text in the target language. In our today's session, we are going to focus on attaining a natural text in the target language, because when we translate, usually the source language affects our translation, which makes our translation sound like an awkward transferring of ideas stated in another language. That's why we have a lot of unnatural words, expressions, and even sentences when we read a translated text. But how can we attain a natural text in that translation? So, as we said before, when we translate this sentence, which is flu is safer than AIDS, if we translated it like this, الإنفلونزا أكثر أمانا من الإيدز, this is a mistranslation of this sentence because, again, one of them is safer, while in fact both of them are dangerous diseases which no one wants to catch or to get them. So, a natural translation of this very simple sentence will be الإنفلونزا أقل خطرا من الإيدز. So, our objectives today is to, number one, to identify the metaphor of a glass that any translator needs to have, and we explained this in our previous session, but we are going to just go over it because it is very relevant to today's session. And also we are going to repeat the differences between editing and proofreading, because reviewing your text is a very important step towards getting a natural text. And then we are going to have a little practice on editing and proofreading a text, and we are going to identify the text features in a translated text. How can we get a natural text? What are the components? What are the features of a natural text in a target language? And we are going to finish up this session with practicing on attaining a natural text. So, as we said before, translation is a process. It contains a number of steps. So step one, usually we have to read the text to identify the content, the participants, the events, the places, and so on, the tenses involved in this text. And we are going to identify the problems that might stand in your way while you translate this text into English or into Arabic. The second step that you go through when you translate is drafting. In this stage, usually you start making your first draft of this text by transferring all the ideas stated in this text, the content, and choosing the best strategy to translate the target text or the source text. So, for example, if your text is an informative text, you have to choose a certain strategy. If it's of the expressive type, you have to choose another strategy. And if it is of the operative type, you have to choose a third strategy. So, based on the text type, you're going to choose your strategy. And then after you're done with drafting your text, you have to review your translation. And we can break down the process of reviewing your text into two major steps. Step 1 is proofreading. Step 2 is editing. And we said in editing, we usually compare the source text with the target text to make sure that you have transferred all the stated ideas and content, exact places, numbers, and so on. While in proofreading, your main focus is on your translated text or your version of the text in the target language. So you have to attend to all the major and minor and complex problems. So we said editing is just looking at the big picture by comparing the source text and the target text and the translation itself. And you can focus your attention by keeping in mind two major questions. The first one is, does your translation accurately convey the meaning of the source text? And the translation use the appropriate terminology and style in the source? So you need to guide your reviewing in the editing stage with these two questions. When it comes to proofreading, again, your main focus is not on comparing the two texts. Rather, it's on reading, investigating your translated text, your version of the source text in the target language. So you need to clean it up to make sure that you haven't forgotten any detail or that your translated text can stand on its own and it is a mistake-free text. So usually you have to check it for accuracy and you have to rewrite any part that doesn't flow well in English or in Arabic depending on the type of text you translate. After that, usually you have to proofread the entire document for mechanical or formatting errors. So we have two types of translation after you're done with this, whether your translation is a good one or it's a bad one. So we have some features. If your translation has one or two of these, the following features, it's a bad one, and you have to determine which goes wrong in your translation and work very hard to get an appropriate one. For example, if the meaning in the source language, in the source text, is not fully communicated, is not fully transferred, so your translation is not a good one. If your style is inappropriate, is unclear, and so on, and you are using different strategies of translating different text types. For example, if your text is an informative and you are rewriting or using free translation strategy while translating your text. And also if we have any awkward transference of any ideas, or you don't have the appropriate cohesive ties, you haven't used the appropriate conjunctions to link your units, to link your sentences, or you go for informal while your text is very formal, and so on and so forth. Or if you have grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes, or any other kind of mistakes that usually misform your text and make your text ineligible or illegible or not easy to be read in the target language. But on the other hand, we have good translation, and a good translation means that the meaning is masterfully communicated in the source in the target text, and your word choice, you have chosen your text, your words quite skillfully, and you have used your competence of the grammar of the language quite well, and it reads smoothly. You don't have any awkward pauses or awkward positions or awkward words or awkward styles and so on. And your language is appropriate, your wording, your style, and it has some creative solutions to grammar problems. So we can again sum up the translation process in read, translate, and revise. You have to go through all of them to get a natural text in the target language. So usually there are some problems that many translators complain about while they translate any text. Some of these problems are: one, contextualized terms, certain terms in a certain context, or sentence splitting. So if you are going to divide your larger structure, long sentences, into smaller one, how can you handle this? And then connecting these splitted sentences and using collocation and idioms to make your translation quite natural. So let's go through them one by one. What do I mean by contextualized terms? Contextualized terms, you have to keep in mind context is a very defining factor in getting the meaning of any word. So every word in English has more than one meaning, so the dictionary usually provides us with a set of meanings, and we have to choose what fits in the style that we have in the text. For example, let's have this word, which is here. Usually a good dictionary will usually provide the following meanings, the following lexical meanings. We'll have this word يسمع, ينصت, يتصنت, ينظر, يفكر. How can we choose which one fits in the context that we have in a certain text? Based on, again, the words that go before and after the sentence that this word occurs in, and so on. So, for example, I heard some bad news about your problems at work. So, what do you think? Is it يتصنت, يفكر, ينظر, or يسمع? لقد علمت, and so on. لقد وصلتني بعض الأخبار. And when it comes to the second sentence here, I hear a noise outside. So I hear a noise, أسمع. Lord, hear your prayers. Lord, hear your prayers. It's a kind of استجاب الله لدعواتك. And the last one, the judge is going to hear the case tomorrow. Here, he is not going to listen or يستجيب the case. Here we have a court context. That's why we need to use this verb ينظر, يحكم فيه, يتداول, and so on. So here the context is a very important defining factor in getting the natural meaning of a certain context or of a certain word in a certain sentence. So you have to keep this in mind. So this was the first usually problem that a lot of translators complain about. The second one is sentence splitting. Usually when we translate from Arabic into English, we come across a very usually a very problematic aspect, and this problematic aspect has to do with dividing your sentences into translatable units. So if we just have a look at this text, which is this one, if we have a look at this text, فهذا أمر يحدث في أكثر من مكان، وقد رأينا صراعات من هذا النوع في هذه الدولة أو تلك، ولكننا لم نشهد على الإطلاق هذا القدر من الشر والعنف الذي رأيناه في البوسنة والهرسك، ونشهده اليوم أضعافا مضاعفة في كوسوفو التي يسكنها 90% من المسلمين. ومن حقهم الطبيعي أن يطلبوا شيئا من الاستقلال الذاتي، وقد كان يهمهم هذا الاستقلال من قبل، ثم وافقوا على نوع متواضع من الحكم الذاتي في محادثات سياسية. If we just have a quick look at this text, we'll find out that it has just one long sentence in Arabic. But can we have this transferred into English in the same form? Of course not. So we need to divide this text into translatable units. Units that are easy to be transferred, that usually comply with the grammar of the English and usually adopt an English style in transferring ideas. So here in the translation, how many sentences do we have? Let's define a sentence, for example, by looking at the full stop or the semicolon. So here is the first sentence, and the second one is here, and the third one is here, and the fourth one is here. So usually we do not bind ourselves with the formal aspects of the text. So here we have one sentence, but here we have 4 sentences, and this is a natural Arabic text and this is a natural English text. So unfortunately such concerns are not unique to this country, though. We have seen struggles such as this in various countries and have witnesses similar scenes of madness caused by religious fanaticism or extreme nationalism, but never in the scale which we saw in Bosnia, and yet now we see it again with redoubled force in Kosovo, whose population comprises some 90% Muslims and whose natural right is to demand some form of self-government. The Bosnians previously raised the issue of dependence in the past, but eventually accepted a modest form of self-government at the political talks. So again here, the problem of dividing very long sentences can be overcome by dividing your text into translatable units. And in the session that we discussed how to translate longer sentences, I taught you a very simple way to translate this kind of long sentences by saying or by using numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you are translating a very long compound complex sentences from English into Arabic, I taught you how to use 1, 2, 3, 4 technique. So you can start by using 1, 4, 3, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, and then or 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. So based on the kind of the information structure involved in the target text. And then we have the problem of cohesion and coherence. And in the session that I discussed cohesion and coherence, I tried to point out the differences between cohesion and coherence. Cohesion is to make your text connected, to make your units connected by using pronouns, for example, by using repetition, repeating keywords, or by using different types of conjunction like subordinating conjunction or coordinating conjunction, or even translational adverbial conjunction like however, therefore, similarly, consequently, also, and so on the other hand, and so on and so forth. So if we just have a look at this text and we translate it like this: Egypt U23 national team forward Mustafa Mohammed has talked about his side's qualification for the 2020 Olympics, saying that the final is a must-win game. So here تحدث مصطفى محمد مهاجم منتخب مصر الأولمبي عن تأهل فريقه لدورة الألعاب الأولمبية وذكر here we have to add and وأن المباراة النهائية لا بديل عن تحقيق الفوز فيها. So لا بديل عن تحقيق الفوز فيها. So here we have to add a pronoun, for example, or use a conjunction where to make this text sound like English or sound like natural Arabic. In fact, adding these two functional items doesn't affect the meaning involved in the source text. So if we compare this and this, we almost have the same meaning. And when it comes to the next one, ففي عقب, so we add here ففي, following a convincing 3-1 win against South Africa in the U23 AFCON semi-finals. Egypt booked their spot in the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo next summer. ففي عقاب الفوز المستحق بنتيجة 3-0 على منتخب جنوب أفريقيا في نصف نهائي بطولة كأس الأمم الأفريقية تحت 23 سنة، حجزت مصر مكانا لها ومكانا في دورة الألعاب الأولمبية التي ستعقد في طوكيو الأسبوع المقبل. So you have to use cohesion, you have to use cohesive ties, conjunction, pronouns, and so on to make your text connected. And you فيها, for example, in this which refers back to a مباراة نهائية. So you have to keep in mind to use the appropriate references, pronouns, and conjunctions, and so on to make your translation sound like a native text or a natural text or a communicative one. Also, when it comes to coherence, coherence means to make your text units flow into one another. They are logically connected. So, for example, the second sentence explains the previous one, or gives an example for the previous one, or illustrates the previous one, or is connected as a cause and the effect with the previous or the next one, so on. So you have to keep some logical connection between your units and sentences. And the final problem is the problem of editing and proofreading your text. For example, here اللاعب مصطفى محمد حاليا, if we translate this text here, Mustafa Mohammed is currently the U23 AFCON's top scorer after netting 4 goals in the competition. If we translated it like this, so Mustafa Mohammed, اللاعب مصطفى محمد, is currently حاليا is the U23 AFCON under 23 AFCON's top scorer after netting 4 goals in the competition. So top scorer, is it قمة مسجل? After netting بعد شبكة net 4 goals 4 أهداف في البطولة. Does it sound natural? Of course not, because this is an acceptable text in English while this doesn't make any sense in Arabic. So how can we edit this and make it natural in the translation? How to maintain linguistic appropriateness? See, we can translate it currently. وحتى الآن لا يزال اللاعب مصطفى محمد هداف بطولة كأس الأمم الإفريقية تحت 23 سنة بعد تسجيله ل4 أهداف. Here we have again maintained some kind of logical connection between the information pieces involved in the source text. So this sentence لا يزال هداف. Why is he the top scorer? Because he scored, because he netted 4 goals so far in the competition. So when you revise your translation, keep this mind map in your mind. Number one, you have to proofread, and this proofreading, it's a kind of accuracy, and we have editing, it's a kind of cosmic phase, it's a kind of remedial surgery. So you have to compare here your text with its appearance, its taste, style, and register, formal or informal, and you keep your eyes on the product by comparing the material, the source text, with the product, which is your translation. And after you're done with step one, go to step two, which is proofreading, and your main focus in this stage is on the translation. So we have some complex problem, ungrammatical structure or inconsistency, such as قمة مسجل and so on, inconsistency, and minor some such as spelling mistakes or punctuation mistakes or lexical mistakes. So again, I will keep repeating: when you translate, read, translate, and revise. These are the three keywords when you translate to maintain linguistic appropriateness. So, just as a panoramic mind map for translation process, translation, what are the items or the sub-item involved in these three keywords? When you translate, you have to keep in mind to get the meaning, to identify the problem, and to identify the text type. And then when you go into the second stage, when you have to go for comparing your text and to make sure that you have chosen the correct text type, the correct strategy of translating this text type. And when you proofread, you have to make sure that your text reads smoothly and it is grammar and mechanics free mistakes, or mistakes free, and it is cohesive, and it is appropriate, it is natural. So again, in order to say your text is a text in the target language, after you're done with translating your text, you have to answer the following question: does your text include cohesion, coherence, intention, situationality, acceptability, and informativity? And what do I mean by each one of them? When I say cohesion, it means your ideas are related and connected. When I say coherence, it means your ideas are progressed in a logical way. The second sentence, for example, explains the first one, or the first sentence is exemplified in the second one, or is supported by the second one. Again, you have to keep in mind the rules that you have been taught in academic writing, that we have a topic sentence, and we have supporting sentences, and we have concluding sentences. Usually, not all texts include this structure, but again, the ideas involved in any text are organized in a certain way. That's why we say we have information structure, because anyone who writes anything, in fact, has something in his mind and he would like to transfer it to a receiver or a reader, or the one who usually on the other side of the text. And then when we say intention, it means this speaker or this writer has an intention to communicate something. So you need to pinpoint the component, the items involved in this text. And situation, here we have a situation, and this situation is suitable to the context. So usually we have to select a certain situation. For example, in the two texts that we have discussed today, we have one of them is related to sport. So we have a situation, and this situation is connected to a certain context, the U23 competition, and acceptable. The ideas are true and acceptable. Yeah, they sound logical and they do not sound awkward or unacceptable. And informative, they or this text tells us some pieces of information. So you have to make sure that your translation involve all of these. Are your ideas connected? Are they logically progressing? Do we have a communicative aspect? Do we have a text that is suitable to the context? The ideas are true, and do we have coherent, appropriate information involved in the text? So your assignment is to translate this text, which is about النادي الأهلي, and this is the text here. which is النادي الأهلي يتصدر الدوري المصري. فاز النادي الأهلي على فريق النادي الإسماعيلي في المباراة التي جمعت بينهما في استاد حرس الحدود بالإسكندرية، وقد حقق النادي الأهلي فوزا مستحقا بعد إحراز البديل وليد سليمان لهدف المباراة الوحيد، وبهذا حقق النادي الأهلي الفوز السابع على التوالي وحافظ على تصدره لجدول الدوري الممتاز. وقد لعب كل من الفريقين بحذر وحاول السيطرة على وسط الملعب، وقد لعب فريق النادي الأهلي مباراة دفاعية تكاتفت فيها جهود الحارس والدفاع وخط الوسط والهجوم، ولعل أبرز هجمات اللقاء كانت تسديدة أيمن أشرف القوية من على بعد 30 متر وضربت في العارضة كروس بار. ويتصدر فريق النادي الأهلي جدول الدوري المصري برصيد 21 نقطة، ويأتي فريق الاتحاد في المركز الثاني برصيد 20 نقطة. So this is your assignment for our next session, and you have to make sure that you have submitted all the assigned text or all your assignments on time, because all of them will be graded. And that's it for today. And if you have any question regarding attaining linguistic appropriateness, you have to get back to me on the LMS with your question, and I will do my best to answer your inquiry or illustrate the point that you have already asked, that you have already posted there. So in today's session, we went over the metaphor of using two lenses, and we pinpointed the differences between editing and proofreading, and we practiced editing and proofreading, and we identified the features of text in a translated one and practice attaining a natural text, and also we identified the features of a good text in any language. So that's it for today, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.